Hello friends, Klage back, and finally, as I promised many months ago, I am getting to a couple videos I've had in the works for months now. You are going to finally get some lists. Good old-fashioned, please click on this button YouTube content, because everybody loves lists, especially tier lists, because they are always perfect and accurate. All joking aside, I'm really excited today to bring you what I have worked on for my personal take on Anji Mito's matchup chart in Guilty Gear Accent Core Plus R. So, first and foremost, let's get the important stuff out of the way. Any tier list, any matchup chart, any of these things come with a level of personal opinion. I went out of my way to get a lot of outside input and limit my bias the best I can when making this chart, because I want this to be as accurate as I feel I can get in terms of explaining to you what matchups Anji does well in, what matchups he doesn't do well in, and what makes him a character in general, of how his strengths play or how they can be muted in different matchups. So, as always, if you know anything about tier lists and matchup charts, don't take them as gospel. This is not me proclaiming the absolute matchup chart of all time for Anji. These are my opinions, but they're not just my opinions alone. How I made the decision on finalizing this matchup chart, and let me tell you, it went through numerous iterations. What you're seeing is definitely not what I started with. But I used, obviously, a lot of my own personal experience playing Plus R a lot. I've been playing a ton, again, trying to play as many strong players as I can to really figure out some bits and pieces of matchups I wasn't totally sure on. And then also studying high-level play from other Anjis, I think, play the character at his best. Players like AGF and Dry Ace from Japan, Zidane from America, you know, anyone I could find that I feel like really represents Anji played at the highest level. I also got lots of input and feedback from friends in the fighting game community, people I really trust who understand the game, not just, you know, from a base level of, oh, Anji does this in X matchup, but overall, people who commentate the game and study the game very well. And I want to give a special shout out to my good friend and one of my co-commentators, Sammy Fish. I will be plugging his Twitter and stuff in the description down below. Give him a watch. He's an incredibly intelligent person about analyzing games, an excellent commentator, and going over this with him was really helpful and really helped kind of finalize my feelings on these matchups. So, as for what this matchup chart is going to represent, this is my feeling on how Anji's matchups play out at the highest level of play. Some of these matchups are going to feel wildly different at even a slightly lower level, because sometimes getting a little bit of an advantage or losing to a disadvantage in a matchup doesn't really make itself apparent till you are playing on the absolute peak of the playing field. And I understand not everyone is going to be exposed to that. A lot of people don't play, you know, the best of the best from Japan or America or anywhere around the world. And so some of these matchups might feel completely different to you if you're just starting out, or even if you're, you know, getting a good feel for the game, but you're still kind of working through that mid-level of the next layer of how to get better at Plus R. So just keep that in mind. These are designed to, if the best Anji in the world plays the best X character in the world and they both play to the best of their ability, this is how the matchup most likely plays out. That's the basis for how we're doing this. So I'm going to go from worst matchups to best so that people are more encouraged to stick around to hear the good news instead of, you know, just watching the good news and then not caring about the matchups we get mollywopped in. Spoilers, there's nothing we get truly mollywopped in. Anji's a very balanced character in this game. He can scrap with anybody, but we'll go over all that as we get going. So, yeah, that's going to be the gist of this. I thought about doing, for the first time ever, like individually recording each one and, you know, doing some editing, making this be a lot more clean. And then I remembered, that's not me. That's not how I do my videos. Nobody comes here for elite polish and YouTube snazziness. I'm just here to give you a big old information dump. So do forgive me. This is probably going to be long. I'm probably going to stumble over words a few times and have to correct myself, and there will almost certainly be annotations. Well, we don't get annotations anymore, thanks YouTube. But corrections either in the description or whatnot for things I might have missed or something I might have said incorrectly over the course of however long it takes to get this information out of my annoying mouth. So, let's just start with the overview real quick of how Anji either succeeds or what causes him to have difficulty in a given matchup, right? So what gives Anji trouble? What are the things that slow him down in matchups? What are good ways to stifle his base game plan in Plus R? Well, the basic answers are things I've gone over before. Anyone with really good lows is something that Anji has to try and deal with. Good lows are very effective at beating most of his auto guard options. They're fantastic for stopping Fujin in its tracks. They can be very good for beating Fujin follow-ups outside of things like Hop, which is an innate risk in and of itself. So those always are number one. That's rough. Anything that's a strong answer to Fujin obviously also tones down Anji's threat level quite a bit. Fujin is a powerful move. It is not the linchpin in every matchup that people think it is. Anji doesn't necessarily excel in this game by going Unga Bunga hard slash Fujin, much as many people still want to think that is. And to be frank, I'm glad people think it, because it makes my job of beating people way easier when they just get tilted by Fujin. It makes my life so much easier. But in reality, lots of characters have good answers to Fujin, and you can't just throw it out all the time and succeed. It's no different from if, bad guy tries to throw out Volcanic Viper and Grand Viper to solve all his problems. Like, yeah, you might catch some people off guard now and again, but once people catch wise, you're in trouble. That's going to hurt. So that obviously is a big thing. Another big one that causes Anji problems is if his standing punch, 5P, is not very effective in a matchup. That is a big loss for him. His stand jab is oppressive. It is one of the best pokes in the game. It is probably the best 5P in the entire game. And it's very good at what it does. It has an obscene level on it. It's a level 3 jab, which is just absolutely mind-blowing when you think about it in terms of how Guilty Gear usually works. But there's a lot of matchups where characters easily dash under it or low profile it, or it's just not an effective, tool in that matchup. That hurts him greatly because that is a very big button that kind of glues a lot of his kit together. And the last one that's usually a problem for Anji is lack of air superiority. If a character can go up in the air and outmaneuver Anji or outpoke him and keep him from being able to utilize his very effective super jump, his very good air normals, that slows him down quite a bit. So those are the things that kind of all in all are what you're looking for. If Anji can excel with these things in a matchup, he's probably going to do very well. If these things are all hindered or slowed down in any way, that's where Anji has problems, and he's probably going to struggle a lot more than you would normally see. So let's get right into it. We're going to go character by character from the worst all the way up to the best, and I'm going to give you an explanation of why they are what they are. So without further ado, we're going to start right here. The worst matchups, the worst of the worst. Mei. This is probably going to be surprising to people. Plus R has very high-powered characters, obviously. I think a lot of people would expect, Zappa or Testament or the really, truly oppressive characters to be our problem. But I stand by this opinion, and I've had this opinion for a long time, and it's only been further pushed that way, getting to do things like play FT or not FT, Kiriko in matches on Plus R Online, and watching him play matches against Dry Ace and AGF. This matchup is rough, and this is one that outside of peak level, you're probably thinking, Klage, what are you smoking? There is no way this is that bad of a matchup. Anji can Fujin through stuff and beat Mei real good. And at most levels, you are correct. But this matchup starts with one button and one button only. That is Mei's standing heavy, 5H. 5H is the stop sign. Anji has no button that answers 5H at max range. He can't Fujin through it. He can't poke against it. It's incredibly hard to punish on with. It's incredibly hard to challenge in any way, shape, or form. And the risk-reward for attempting to challenge that button is heavily skewed in Mei's favor. This button is a nightmare. It is literally on its own what propels this matchup from being slightly disadvantaged, kind of an annoying thing to deal with, to flat out, this matchup feels like a wall I can't get over a lot of the times. If you have a Mei player that's not committed to playing very, very stingy and just going, I'm going to sit here at max Fujin range and hit 5H until you overcommit, then this matchup gets a lot more manageable because Anji can do some things to Mei. He has some pokes that can kind of challenge her horizontally. Auto guard can be useful for Mei's trying to come down on your head with the falling anchor or trying to abuse jump H. But even if you take 5H out of the equation, Mei does a lot of things that fluster Anji. She has some very good lows. She has extreme air superiority over him. It is very hard for Anji to go up in the air and challenge Mei. He gets swatted quite easily. And even though Mei's rewards off big counter hits aren't what they used to be in vanilla Accent Core, she still hurts. And you do not want to get counter hit by this character. It's no fun. You also can't overcommit to doing things like trying to forward punch through dolphins because she has access to force break dolphin that can shut you down, cause you a lot of damage. So this one, it probably seems off, and this might be one of the most controversial, quote-unquote, pieces of the entire matchup chart when it's all said and done. But Mei just has the right combination of buttons, and it all centers around Stand Heavy just being an absolute shutdown button against Anji. And she is really the only character that has one button like that on its own can single-handedly tilt a matchup heavily against him. Very few characters have access to this. Now, you're not going to see a lot of Elite Meis. She's not near as popular as she used to be. And a lot of Mei players are kind of wild because this character is very effective at being kind of wild and aggressive. She jumps really easily because she has the fastest jump startup in the game. She can be really pesky. You can do really annoying things. And lots of people like to do gimmicky things with like overhead kiss setups that are great for catching people off guard, but become much less good when people know what they're doing. So this is one of those that I think in most practical situations will not feel near as bad as it looks on this chart, but having seen this played to perfection by high-level Japanese Meis, this matchup sucks. It feels really bad, and Anji can definitely scrap. If he hits Mei, she's lightweight, she has a big hitbox, we get to do big combos. She doesn't have great answers to Butterfly Oki, so we get to play our game if we can hit her. But man, getting that first hit can be brutal to come across sometimes, and that is why I feel Mei is our worst matchup in the game. So that's where she ends up here. So other worst matchups. None. That's it. That's the only one I feel is worse than 4-6. So that gives you an idea of how close all of Anji's matchups are. But let's continue on. If I didn't mention earlier, I don't think I did. This is going to be ordered from left to right. The further to the right on a list or a tier that a character is in the matchup chart, that means they're that much closer to going down, being a more difficult matchup than in the tier they're in. So if you're on the far right, that means you're one step away from being a worse matchup. If you're on the far left, you're one step away from being an easier matchup. And so, pretty simple and straightforward. So we're going to continue going upwards, and it's going to get better and better as we go. So next, Soul Bad Guy. This is the prototype character for being an Anji killer. Soul does everything in practice and in practicality that absolutely blows up Anji's game plan. His sweep is destructive to us. It is an instant shutdown to Fujin. It's very good against some of our better pokes like 6S and Stand Heavy. It's a huge, huge disruptor for Anji. And to make things worse, Soul gets gigantic reward off any counter hit if the Soul knows what they're doing. To make things doubly worse, Anji is one of the easiest characters in the game for Soul to hit his juiciest combos. If you don't know how Soul works in +R, his combos are some of the most finicky in the game. He has very character-specific stuff for Sidewinder loops to work properly, but Anji is really easy to Sidewinder loop, and so when we get counter hit, we get our health bar exploded, and it feels really bad. So we have to tone down our poking a lot in neutral. 5P is borderline useless in this matchup in a lot of practical situations because Soul's dash goes under it, so we can't even try and poke horizontally with it. His jump buttons are incredibly good. Jump punch and jump heavy are incredibly disjointed and hard to deal with, so we can't really reliably anti-air with 5P either. So we have to commit to things like doing max range crouching slash in neutral to try and combat what Soul can do to us on the ground. And it can work. It definitely has an effective use, but the risk-reward for basic neutral and basic poking goes heavily in Bad Guy's favor in this matchup. The other problem is that even when we get a foothold and get a nice knockdown, Soul is very effective at disrespecting Butterfly. We have to respect Wake Up DP. We have to respect Wake Up Grand Viper, which can get Soul out of a lot of Butterfly situations that seem almost airtight on most characters. And when that happens, that feels bad. So what this really boils down to is we can fight. We have the pokes, we can do things, but we can't do reckless things in this matchup at all. We cannot really poke with Fujin hardly ever, because if it doesn't hit, we're probably getting counter hit, and we're gonna lose 60% of our life bar. And Soul's just base poking can swat it. He's really, really good at it. At one point, I actually thought this was our worst matchup in the game. I really thought that there was just nothing Soul could do. And then I started really adjusting my play style after watching some more high-level Anjis play it, and realizing that you just have to put a lot of things in the toolkit away and pretend they don't exist. You can't be throwing 6S out willy-nilly. You can't poke with stand heavy unless you're really sure it's going to at least be blocked. Sweep is far too risky to try and low fish with. You really have to narrow it down to things like crouching S, really good use of low to the ground air throws, and really careful use of auto guard to try and deter Soul from doing, blatant jump ins. And even that could be risky, because there's a lot of jump ins where Soul can do like jump H, and even if we auto guard it, Ko might just not catch him. He might land and recover in time. So this one, I think, in practical purposes for most Anji players, is going to feel the worst. This is a matchup that really gives us fits, and it takes a long time to learn how to play, because we have to really mute our standard game plan to make things work. So if you struggle with this matchup, if this feels bad when you're playing Anji and +R, don't get discouraged. That's just this matchup. Soul gets to play his game as well as he does in any matchup in all +R, and ours gets very muted, and that makes for a matchup that is definitely not in our favor. Next, Baiken. Baiken is classically a direct counter to Anji. Has been ever since they've both been in the game. She is incredibly annoying for Anji to fight. She has a suite of very good lows that are very effective at shutting down things like Fujin. Her guard counters are a nuisance. Anji thrives on a lot of stuff like delayed pressure and very slowly but methodically building a guard gauge. You can't reliably do that against Baiken. You have to keep your strings very short and very tight to try and bait guard counters. If you don't, you're going to get punched. Feels real bad. You can even get a button locked out with force break counter. You have to really respect Baiken's defensive capabilities, and that's to not even start about getting to the point where you can make Baiken block in the first place. Sure, her ability to control space in this game is astronomically good. Tatami is oppressive. Just an incredible hitbox of a projectile that covers so many things. You're not going to Fujin through Tatami. You're not going to easily auto guard through Tatami. It is a very, very dangerous tool, and the risk reward for just throwing it out is so immense for Baiken. The damage this character gets for very, very minimal meter investment by just putting her good buttons and her Tatami out in the middle of the screen is enormous. Baiken explodes your life bar in this game, which is why she's really good, because she's got the best defensive suite in the game, but also just detonates you when she gets a counter hit. And getting a counter hit ain't hard to do for this character. The one thing that's the saving grace about this matchup is that Baiken has paper mache defense in terms of her health value and her overall defense rating. So when we hit her, she's a lightweight. We can do big corner carries and multiple, Fujins into a whole lot of damage. If you can max out your combo damage on Baiken, you can detonate, well over half her life bar with only a single force break Reen and really, really rip her. But getting that hit is rough a lot of the time, and Baiken rarely has to put herself in a risky situation to get her big rewards, whereas we really have to fight and scrap to get ours. In addition, we can't loop Oki in this matchup. Butterfly is just a free invitation for Baiken to pick her spot and guard counter out. There are ways to bait it, but they're so specific and they mute so much of what makes Butterfly Oki good in the first place that very rarely outside of things like OTGing Force Break Butterfly in the corner do you want to bother, because you're just trying to cover too many variables at once, and it makes our Oki feel real bad. You have to throw a lot in this game, and usually throw is very good for Anji because throw sets up meaty Butterfly, but again, don't get a lot off that in this case. So that whole equation adds up to a matchup that's always been difficult for us. It's extremely difficult in this game. We struggle in this matchup, but If we get 2 solid counter hits, we might rob a round, and then we're in there. So this is one of those matchups where you have to maximize your damage. You have to get every point of damage out of your big hits. If you don't cash out, you're just not going to win the long game in this. Baiken gets too much consistent reward for playing her base game and is incredibly good at shutting down any of our, big risks we like to take with Fujin or maybe kick stomp, stuff like that. So another one that feels like a struggle because it is, but not hopeless by any stretch of the imagination either. So, moving on next. Another one I think is probably going to surprise quite a few people. A.B.A. So, this matchup I think is actually terrible. A.B.A. does a lot of things that annoy Anji in very brutal ways. This character is also very misunderstood and has been for a long time in Plus R. A lot of people thought this character is, it's too gambly, too polarizing. She's not that good. No, when you get to my tier list, you'll hear a lot about A.B.A. and why I think she's been vastly underrated for a long time in this game. But the sheer fact of the matter is A.B.A.'s really annoying to combo because her hitboxes are all borderline unfinished. She has a lot of disjointed stuff. Her actual hitbox for hitting her combos is really annoying. She has a ridiculously delayed get up, which causes a lot of annoyance for us as a player. And that's just talking about her outside of Moroha mode, where she is, not a good character. The whole point of A.B.A. is the challenge is she has to earn her way into Moroha mode before she gets to play the game. But boy, does she have the pokes to do it. And on top of it, once she gets into Moroha mode, life gets real difficult. This character has very far-reaching lows. She has pokes that are unthrowable on our wake-up that we do not want to challenge because the risk-reward to challenging this character once she's in Moroha mode is brutally against us. The only thing that makes this matchup not abhorrent is the fact that Anji is one of the characters blessed with a fast instant kill activation and a full screen instant kill that's absurdly quick. So if she ever gets Moroha stunned, if she ever takes a third knockdown or runs out of Moroha gauge without using a blood pack or a key grab to go back to normal mode, she's going to die, literally. We get to do it for no meter off almost every practical situation. If we didn't have that, this might be the worst matchup in the game for us, because once A.B.A.'s in Moroha mode, once we start blocking, our guard gauge is going to get cranked, and if we want to get out, we have to take some serious risks, or you better be the best defensive player of all time, because A.B.A.'s pressure in Moroha mode, and then especially in Goku Moroha mode, is brutal. What this really just boils down to is that A.B.A. in those modes is in the argument for being the best character in the game. She just has so many tools that are incredibly strong. And some A.B.A.s will get cheeky and try to do stuff like set up unblockables without a knockdown and things like that. And if they overextend like that, we can punish. We can sneak in a Fujin. We can sneak in an auto guard, and we can really ruin their day. But it's not like we get to detonate her life bar most of the time unless she's been really reckless in Moroha mode. And, done a ton of damage to herself and not been able to key grab her blood pack out to regain that health. So at the end of the day, I think this matchup's rough. We have to do a lot of things even when we get a knockdown. If you want to do butterfly pressure and this character has any meter whatsoever, you have to account for things like Force Break Danzai, and we can do stuff to it, but it revolves around doing strings that are very unorthodox for our pressure that use a lot of delay to auto guard to try and bait out anything she does so we don't just get swatted for playing our basic game. So this matchup's rough, and this matchup, I think, is one that people just assume, Anji instant kills her, so it must be a pretty good matchup. And in this game, I don't think it is. I really don't think it is at all. There are things you can interrupt. You can auto guard the second hit of Lazy Danzai's. If you block Goku Moroha activation or it doesn't hit you, you can Fujin through it on reaction from the flash. So there are little things we have to try and exploit mistakes. But if the A.B.A. player doesn't overextend and uses Moroha mode properly and is content to just crank our guard gauge and dare us to try and take a risky option out, That hurts, man. I have seen myself just go from 80% to 0 against Moroha and Goku Moroha A.B.A multiple times because I'm trying to be patient, trying to find my window out, and you don't, and you're in trouble. And it also doesn't help that because her pokes and pressure is so good, you don't particularly want to poke back, so a lot of A.B.A.s will just run up and throw you, which, you know, kind of destroys any risky Fujin auto guard stuff you want to do anyway. So, yeah, in short, IK keeps us in this match. But, boy, it's not fun. It's not fun once she gets into Moroha mode. Get ready, because you might have to go for the ride. Next, Jam. Jam I can best describe, matchup-wise, as mini-Soul. A lot of the same things that Soul does to make our life hell, Jam does effectively as well. Very, very good lows. Sweep is very good. Stand kick is very good. Just very good low pokes that are like, oh, you want to try and do cute Fujin things? I got an answer for that, no problem. She gets to disrespect Butterfly to an extent because of parry. Not as harshly as Soul can disrespect Butterfly, because we do have some answers to make it much more difficult for her to just parry her way out of setups, but it's still a thing that definitely invalidates a lot of our base Butterfly options. And she is absolutely a problem for us in the air. This character has incredible air normals, especially if she's coming from below you, which is very common because a lot of times when we go to the air, we're using our super jump, which has an incredibly high arc to it. And if Jam is below you in the air, you're in trouble. We have no way to contest things like jump S and jump heavy. We're gonna have a bad time up there. So we do have some very valuable pokes in this matchup. Crouching slash does work. It'll shut down lazy puffball attempts and attempts to kind of just bulldog her way in on the ground. Down forward kick 3K, very good in this matchup. You know, goes very far on counter hit. We get a great reward. And when we counter hit Jam, we get very good combos. Once we reach the corner, she's one of the two characters we can do the stand slash stand heavy sweep, and it air juggles combo. So that allows some pretty big damage output for very minimal resources, which is really nice. So when we do hit her, we get to make it count. But the thing is once Jam gets a single knockdown and she has cards, we might be one hit away from death. This character, as soon as she gets that card set up and is ready to go, life sucks. You can't take that counter hit after that. You can't get knocked out of something, or you might be in real trouble. We do have a few unique things that a lot of characters don't. We can disrespect forward heavy on wake up a bit more, because obviously if you see a Jam committing to forward heavy, yes, it's unthrowable, yes, it's plus, and it's a very, disjointed hitbox, but that's something we can auto guard on reaction on wake up. So she can't be quite as brain dead with her Oki, but the thing is, Jam doesn't need to. Jam can win this matchup by converting her straight counter hits into big damage with charge cards, and that gets real difficult for us to deal with. So very momentum based, and like I said, this is just basically like a slightly less oppressive version of Soul, where the damage output isn't quite as consistent and the buttons don't quite as directly counter us as hard, but her game plan is still incredibly effective against Anji, and this can be a real annoying matchup to try and power your way through. But in general, I think, even though I think it's kind of the same thing, it's a 4-6 in their favor, I think this is a much less oppressive 4-6 than Soul, if that makes sense, and that's why she's further left on this part of the chart. So, up next, Fausto, whose music actually is playing right now. How ironic. This is another classic Anji Mito counter character. Faust has always been exceedingly good at shutting down Anji for a myriad reasons. He has so many good buttons. Crouching kick is just a direct counter to Anji. Shuts down Fujin. Shuts down a lot of our approaches. It's incredible, meaty. Auto burst phase. It's the can opener, man. Faust 2K has been a god poke forever, and that's no different here. Very, very good. Shuts down a lot of auto guard. And in the air, he has one of the best Anji stop signs ever made in jump heavy. That move is just the big old, sorry, sir. This is air traffic control. You need to get on the ground where you belong. Just obnoxious as all hell to deal with. Very, very strong. His pokes oftentimes rival or outpace ours in a lot of spacing and situation where Anji, feels like he has good poke options. Stuff like, forward slash is okay in this matchup, but it's not elite. There's things Faust can do to poke us out. And obviously you have things like item RNG that always come into play. You know, something as simple as a mini Faust or a mini Robo is a nightmare for Anji to deal with because it's a thing on the ground that's really low that we can't do anything about. And that, of course, is a bane of Anji's existence, even in the best situations. There's also some other unique problems in this matchup. Butterfly is much less inconsistent as an Oki tool because Faust has the ability to crawl under it. Now, there are things we can do to deter that, but it's not ideal. And anytime we have to make concessions in Butterfly Oki, that's usually not good for us. In general, this matchup feels like one of those where Faust can do what Faust does best, throw items, control space, uses good buttons, and he'll have a lot of success. Anji usually has to work a little bit harder to get his hits. Fujin can reach in this matchup, but a lot of things will shut it down. Our pokes can reach in this matchup, but a lot of times we get swatted, and we can't chase in the air near as easily as we would like to. We do get some very unique, highly optimized combos on Faust, which is quite nice. We can get a lot of damage, and if we put him in the corner, we can very, very limit his options. You know, if you corner Faust, he has to start committing to things like Force Break Chop, which is a semi-reversal, but not a true one. And if we get, limit Faust's ability to control space, this fight gets a lot more manageable. But getting to that point, first and foremost, can feel like a real uphill climb. And a lot of times, it's just going to feel like your opportunities to gain momentum in this matchup are few and far between. And that's why, more often than not, this is one that skews a little bit in Faust's favor. I would say Anji has a much better toolkit for dealing with it in +R than he does most games that he tries to fight Faust in. But this is still one that, more often than not, you're going to feel flustered and you're going to feel like, man, I just can't move, I can't score a hit. But when you do, you can make it count and you can gain some momentum. And as soon as Faust doesn't have all his real estate to work with, becomes a much more manageable fight. So that's why I think it's on the very tail end of the disadvantage, the true 4/6s. So with that, we're actually out of the truly disadvantageous matchup. Everything else is close to or even or better. So from here is where it starts getting a little bit nicer. But we still have some more that are not quite in our favor. And I'm going to start with one that, again, I think is probably going to be very surprising to most people. Zappa. A lot of people consider Zappa the best character in the game. A lot of people think Sword is the single best moveset in the game, and there's a very strong argument for it. And how Zappa usually works in +R is, more often than not, a lot of characters can usually kind of handle at least one summon, sometimes two, fairly well. They can combat whatever, random summon he rolls when he does summon DP or when he wakes up with a summon after being knocked down randomly. The problem is when there's the one summon that your character doesn't have a good answer for. And if your character doesn't have an answer for two of them, you're in real trouble. Anji is in the slightly better boat. Ironically enough, the summons that give a lot of characters problems, Sword and the triplets, the ghosts, are two that Anji fight very well. Triplets especially, Anji's very effective against. Even if Anji gets the curse put on him by the triplets, he has a lot of auto guard opportunities that allow him to challenge Zappa when the triplets are on the screen. Zappa's overall pokes become less oppressive with the triplets, and Anji has a lot more opportunities to fight back against them. Sword is still very oppressive, but Anji has a couple unique things that make it so Zappa can't just mindlessly do the sword pressure he gets on a whole lot of characters. Anji's super jump gets him over a lot of things if he ever gets a little bit of breathing room. And Zappa has to account for Fujin. We can Fujin through sword gaps if people try to reset with overheads and stuff like that when they're playing Zappa with sword. He can shut that down by, recalling the sword and doing sword thrust, what I basically just call sword Fujin, where he lunges forward, or using the uppercut to try and shut us down if we come from the air. But those are higher risk options with the sword. If they get blocked, we actually get to hammer Zappa pretty hard for that. Where we have the big problem with Zappa is Dog. Dog is a huge problem for Anji. He's very annoying to get off the screen. He's not like Little Eddie where we can easily poke him once and he'll go away because he doesn't always have a hitbox depending on what he's doing. And the real nightmare is when you do get momentum and finally get a knockdown and you see Zappa wake up with the dog as his random summon upon wake up. That's a stop sign. If you have a butterfly on Zappa, you might as well not bother following it in, because if you try to go up and mix, the dog's just going to flip, knock you out of it, and Zappa's going to gain control and you're going to have a bad time. Dog is a nightmare for Anji. Really, really, really hard for us to deal with. And if you have a match where Zappa rolls dog 3 times in a row, doesn't matter how good you play, you might just never get a chance to excel. Even outside of the summons, Zappa does a lot of things that are really annoying for us. 5P is useless in this matchup. Zappa just low profiles everything. He has very good lows with his low profiling move. He has very good disjointed hitboxes with things like Far S, which is the spit, which is a real problem. And so we have to, again, alter our kit quite a bit. 5P has almost no value. Forward slash loses a lot of value in this matchup, so we have to rely on some slower stuff like down forward kick and 2S to get our big damage. The one saving grace, and why I don't think this is near as bad as people would probably expect it, is if we ever corner Zappa, Zappa has to hold it. If he doesn't wake up with a random dog, he's in trouble. Zappa's biggest defensive strength is his backdash. You could say his DP, but his DP is very easy to bait. It's not a godly reversal. It's just one you have to account for, which is much easier to do than something like Soul's reversal options, for example. But if we can get him in the corner, Zappa may never get away. He has very, very poor defensive options unless he has Row out. And if he has Row out, there's a good chance he's already won the match anyway. So we can fight back, and we can get good counter hits. Zappa has a very wide hitbox when he's being juggled, so we get some very good confirms that with big corner carry, so we can put him where we want. Knockdowns mid-screen are still good. We still get butterfly, but Zappa has a godlike backdash, so if he has room to try and slither away and we leave any gaps in our pressure, Zappa might get away. And so that's obviously a problem. Chasing him down can be really frustrating. But all in all, this is a matchup that is very RNG dependent, depending on what Zappa rolls and how is a big deal. And a lot of times this matchup is won and lost very early on by not allowing Zappa to get a quick knockdown and summon something. If you can prevent him from getting orbs and summoning early, you can kind of scrap. It's really hard to get past Far Slash, don't get me wrong. Zappa has some crazy, crazy disjointed hitboxes that can be real frustrating. But Anji can fight. He can definitely scrap with this character. And again, once we knock him down, he doesn't just get to walk away. He doesn't get to magically disrespect our Oki or disrespect our pressure. We have very good tools for keeping Zappa in his place once we get there. But depending on what kind of summons come up and what kind of things happen, that opportunity might never come. And so you better make sure if you get it, you got to make it count. But if you play this well and capitalize on those opportunities, this matchup's very, very manageable. It is not a beat down from one of the best characters in the game by any stretch of the imagination. Next, Chipp. Completely the other way around. This character actually gives Anji gigantic fits. He is an incredibly strong character, and he does things that Anji doesn't like. He has very good lows. His sweep is incredible. Really, really good button. His mobility is absolutely nightmarish to deal with. You know, our super jump is great and fast and covers ground, but it's still like trying to catch the fly with a pair of chopsticks. Chipp just runs, and he can be very hard to deal with. He can also just do blatantly disrespectful stuff like Air Alpha Blade that's brutally hard to punish, but if he catches you and the Chipp player is elite, they're going to cash that out for big damage, and you're going to be put in the mix, and it feels real bad. Character has incredible force breaks for almost every option there is in the game. Force break Beta Blade, for example. My god, what a DP. Good luck doing anything about that. Even his regular DP has an FRC on it, so even if you bait it, you might not get a punish. So Chipp's really, really annoying. His forward punch is incredible. His general pokes are really good, and in the air, he's very hard to deal with. All in all, this is a really bad matchup. Chipp does so much that flusters us and makes our kit feel muted that this matchup doesn't feel good, but two big caveats. One, Chipp is incredibly hard to pilot plus R. One of the most difficult versions of the character to play. One, not just because his execution is difficult, it is. And two, his game plan requires a lot of very quick and very well-managed game awareness. But it's still Chipp. This character explodes for a single mistake. We can absolutely rob him on a single counter hit. Like, that is why this matchup is this high up the list and not down there with May, because on paper, the toolkit and the things Chipp has working for him are awful for Anji to deal with. Really, really annoying. All of our pokes are not great in this matchup. 5P, he's too short when he runs, can't do anything about it. Our pokes designed to control low space and horizontal space in front of us are very slow against a character like Chipp, so swinging with something like down forward kick doesn't feel very good because you're probably just going to get swatted for it. Chipp's a menace. He's really hard to deal with, but you hit him once or you crank his guard gauge at all and open him up, he might die. You can easily do 75% of this character with even a very mundane confirm if he's blocked anything prior, because it's Chipp. He has incredibly bad defense modifiers, and Guts does not bail people out near as hard in this game as it does in some of the later Guilty Gears. So this is one of those where a lot of it boils down to we just kind of have to throw stuff at the wall sometimes and hope we hit our home run. If you want to think of this like in terms of a card game, Chipp's the control character in this matchup. He dictates the pace of play. He gets to decide what's going on. But that one time he misplays, he might die for it. And that's why this matchup stays manageable. But in general, this one's frustrating. This one could be absolutely infuriating to deal with because Chipp's just very, very good, and he's very mobile. And being very mobile, even for a character like Anji that has a lot of big hitboxes and a great super jump, not terribly easy to go catch. So this one, if you find yourself being flustered by this matchup, that's understandable. Chipp absolutely will give you fits. So, with that, we're out of disadvantage. These are the characters I think do out and out beat Anji in some fashion over a long period of sets with two equal players. Everything else in this game, I think, is even or better. So, let's start getting to the good news and the matchups that aren't so rough. Another one that's probably going to surprise a lot of people, might get a lot of a disagreement, but I do stand by it. Testament. The other character that is consistently considered one of the best, if not the best in the game. On paper, again, this character's power level is off the charts. The things they get to confirm off of, their mix-up, their pressure, their ability to control the screen with nets and webs and trees is obscene. EXE-B is obscene in this game. Incredibly high-power toolkit. But, ironically enough, Anji has a toolkit that fights Testament exceedingly well. Our pokes are great in this matchup. Forward S, very strong. Down forward kick, very strong. 5P, quite good in this matchup. We have all the good pokes to try and combat against Testament. Auto Guard does a lot of work in this matchup. Lazy EXE-B summon, lazy poking, jump-ins, all that. We can Auto Guard through it and make Testament feel real bad. Even when we get in the worst situations and need a knockdown, Testament can't autopilot their EXE mix-up. If they don't commit to doing lows, we can wake up auto guard through some EXE-B stuff, or they have to alter the timings of the EXE-Bs, which might give us more of a gap to escape or do something compared to most characters. That's a nice luxury for Anji that a lot of characters don't get to do. And then the big thing is that we get our juiciest combos and our juiciest confirms on Testament because they are big. They got a big old hitbox. So we get Fujin loops, we get big time confirms into big damage, and even better because they have such a gigantic hitbox, setting things up like Force Break Butterfly for unblockables is super easy on this character. If we get momentum, we can steamroll Testament a lot of the time. You do have to account for things like Warrant. Warrant is an incredibly fast counter that can interrupt any kind of cute gap you try to put in a string. But if you know how to bait it, you can absolutely blow Testament up for doing it. Granted, it has an FRC, so sometimes it's safe, but that's just part of the deal. Testament with resources is the best character in the game in a whole lot of situations, and so that's something you have to account for. But Anji fights this character really well. Our super jump allows us to go up and get rid of nets. Butterfly and neutral has a lot of value in this matchup. Just in general, we do things that you need to do to fight Testament, and that allows us to always be in the matchup. Now, that said, you know, you get knocked down or get comboed into Master of Puppets once and the big tree is planted somewhere on the screen, that might be game right there. Testament still gets to confirm into Trio TG, and you're poisoned, and it does a bajillion damage. You get put in another mix-up. Stuff still feels really bad. This character is powerful for a reason, and there is no world where we just get to run roughshod over him, but when we gain momentum and we execute our combos, we can absolutely make this character have a bad day, and they may never get a chance to play the round again. And so this matchup is not near as bad as a lot of people might think it is. It takes a while to learn all the nuance of it, and it takes a while to not just die to Testament Mix-Up and Testament Oki, but once you get a good feel for it, I think you'll find this matchup exceedingly manageable, and it's one that I feel is very important because that's two of the strongest characters in the game that Anji can absolutely fight in Testament and Zappa. The fact that he holds his own against those characters is very, very important, and why I think he's such a solid character in this game. And if you need the cheaty, I will back up my argument with some very small sample size argument. I've taken games off Kesuke, so that must mean Anji can fight Testament, right? Right? Doesn't matter if it was in high ping or anything like that. Super valid. All right, anyway, nobody cares. Moving on. Next, Axel. So this one is probably the single most improved matchup we have from Vanilla Accent Core. This matchup was abhorrent in Vanilla Accent Core. We got the brakes beat off us by Axel and Accent Core. And it's not that Axel is that much worse. I actually think Axel's still very, very strong in Plus R. It's just that Anji is a much more complete character and has way more ways to actually fight back in this game. So, for me, this matchup alone is like the biggest signal of how much better Anji is compared to Vanilla Accent Core. And trust me, that feels quite good after the many years of feeling real bad about playing my character in that game. But onto the matchup. We have way better tools to do with this. Better pokes overall. Stuff like down forward kick is a big threat at range if Axel gets a little too complacent. We have a much more threatening auto guard in Soul on the ground that can interrupt lazy pressure from Axel. Now, the caveat is that this character has a very good anti-Anji kit. He has very good lows, stuff like down forward punch. Red Sengeki is a low. Just Fujinning this character is not something you can do all the time and succeed. We can Fujin through some of his pokes, but they have very good active hitboxes, so a lot of times that's going to shut us down. That said, we can do things like instant air dash, jump punch for confirms into knockdowns, and while Axel has a one-frame counter, it's not a particularly good thing for trying to get out of butterfly stuff. So once we knock him down, we can hold him in check quite well. His DP is not good, so his reversal options are kind of mediocre. And our pokes overall allow us to fight this matchup. Now, Axel still hits like a truck. If you get counter hit with a crouching slash anti-air or something like that, and Axel has resources, it's probably going to hurt a lot. You're probably going to end up in the corner, which don't feel too hot. But this is one of those where, with a good read and exceptional use of our pokes at their maximum range, things like forward S, things like forward punch, you know, we can hold our own just fine. Axels also can't do lazy pressure. If they try to do stuff like chain into forward heavy, that can be a very easy auto guard for us to blow up and get good reward off of. So this is one where if the Axel is on their game and they're zoning well and checking us on where they think we're going to move, we can feel flustered. We can feel very stonewalled in this matchup. But if we get in once, there's a chance we can run it for a while. We can gain control and hold it, and that's what makes this matchup infinitely more manageable than it used to be. So still not one of my favorites. I still kind of struggle with this matchup, and good Axels make you feel bad, but Anji has the tools now to make this matchup doable, and it's definitely not the nightmare it used to be. And in a way, I actually enjoy playing this just because I can play it. I don't just auto lose now, and that alone makes it feel a lot better. So next, Order Soul, Haas. So, Order Soul shares a lot of the things that regular Soul has that give Anji problems. He has a very similar sweep, which obviously, as I said in the Soul matchup, is a big issue. His jump buttons, especially jump punch and stuff, are very, very potent, very hard to deal with. He's incredibly hard to anti-air because of his SNK style short hop he has access to. You know, he has some other very good lows with Fafnir and stuff like that that can blow us up for being lazy in our approach. But the big difference between Order Soul and regular Soul in terms of why Anji doesn't struggle as hard in this matchup is that, one, Order Soul's damage ceiling is consistently lower. Order Soul with a lot of charge, if he's up to level 2, level 3, and he scores a big hit, yeah, it's gonna hurt. That's not gonna be fun for us. Our life bar gonna go boom. But getting to that level 2 and level 3 charge is not trivial for Order Soul to do, because we do have pokes that will, say, hey, you're not just gonna stand at range and sit there and charge up meter. I'm not gonna play that game with you. So he has to earn his higher levels. And at level 1, his damage output, even on a juicy hit, pales in comparison to what regular Soul gets to do to us. The other big thing is that Order Soul doesn't have a command grab. Wild Throw from Soul is a big problem for Anji. Command grabs obviously help blow up Fujin. They punish us for being too patient, and we have to be patient against characters like Soul because he has very good pokes and very good pressure. Order Soul is a much more Bulldog-style character. He gets on you and holds his own with a lot of frame traps, a lot of heavy pressure, and daring you to make a mistake. And he has a very good throw game as well. His throw game is elite, especially in the corner. But regular throw is not a command grab. He can't run at us and throw us. He still has to dash break to get a throw out. And because he relies so much on frame traps and pressure, we do have options to try and interrupt with stuff like auto guard. Fujin is still not a big problem solver in this matchup. We can't just go, Fujin. Well, it will beat some things. Blockhead and stuff we can Fujin through. Bandit Revolver we can Fujin through when timed right, even the higher level ones. So Fujin still has some value in this matchup, but it's not going to solve our problems. But the combination of auto guard, our damage being more consistent for the resources than Order Souls is, and our ability to fight back in certain ranges with pokes. Crouching Slash still has a ton of value in this matchup. Forward kick, like I said, being your auto guard poke is quite good. Down forward kick is very good for Souls trying to rush in, and forward punch also can do a lot of work in this because of Order Soul's low jump height. So we have the tools to combat Order Soul a little bit better. And again, the big change is no command grab, and just the damage consistency for Order Soul does not rival what Soul gets. Soul on a counter hit, if they didn't do 50% to us, something went wrong. Order Soul is not doing that without some charge built up or some resources to spend, and that allows us more opportunities to score our counter hits and cash out our damage, and that's what changes it from a matchup that doesn't feel very good to one that is pretty much straight up even. Really good Order Souls who consistently use his action cancel to get better frame advantage and check you for trying to counter poke, stuff like that, they can feel very, very suffocating. That can be struggling to get through, but we can scrap. This is definitely one of those, this is a bit of a bulldog matchup, but either character can come out ahead in this, and that's why I kind of feel it really is the definition of an even matchup in this game. Next, ironic that she is playing in the background right now. Dizzy. I will be honest, this is one of the ones I am the least confident in. I've played a couple very, very good Dizzies, but there are not a lot of elite Dizzies on net play very often, which is surprising because this character is, one, very fun to play, two, she good. Character's so strong in this game. Oh my god. So if you're going to take one with a big grain of salt, this might be one of the ones that I am the least sure on my placement on, but let me try and justify my positioning here. So obviously, Dizzy, as I said, very, very good character, incredibly strong. She's arguably the best grappler in the game. Her tick throw game and her mix-up is so strong in this, and is very threatening, loops back into itself very, very well. She does have buttons to challenge our good things like Fujin. She has crouching kick and sweep, which can both shut down lazy or interrupting Fujin attempts quite well. She has a I win neutral option in force break spike. It's just it's very much I don't like the situation. What should I do? Oh, I have meter? All right, let's just fix things. We'll just do that. Good, super, super good answer to a whole lot of things. And she also has some very godly buttons. Her jumping 2S is an absolute war crime of a button if I ever saw one. Unthrowable air normal that hits low on a double air dash character. Yeah, not a fun time. Not a fun time at all. But Anji has some really good answers to a lot of things. His super jump forces her to make us few concessions in terms of playing her screen pollution game. She can't just summon for free and let us jump in. We can get in and get a knockdown, which is quite nice, but good disease will account for this. It can be done. It just means that she can't do it as, unchecked as she can in some other matchups. We also have options to escape some of her mix-up that other characters don't. Anytime she doesn't meet us with a low on pressure, and we try to auto-guard out, we can force break Ko to get through a lot of the nasty mix-up she has. It's hard to do, and if you miss, you're going to take a lot of damage and get right back in the same situation. But that's an out that Anji has that a lot of characters don't have access to of any type. A lot of Dizzy's good offense is really, really good at destroying reversals, because you reversal, you kill a fish, and then the hitbox is gone, and Dizzy's just like, cool, now I get to kill you. Force Break Ko has so many hits and goes so high on the screen that it is an escape. We won't always hit Dizzy. We might not take her with us and get the damage out of it, but just getting out of the corner or something when Dizzy has you pinned down is worth its weight in gold for 25%. That's a deal to get out of that situation. So we have some things to combat. Fujin still has value in this matchup. Dizzy has to heavily commit to stopping it. She has to poke with crouching kick, crouching sweep, crouching dust, to show us that she will not let us just Fujin with impunity. But all that stuff is still there. She has to account for it, and it does make it so she can't just autopilot all of her neutral and pressure. Also, Dizzy has papier-mâché defense. She has basically no guts. She has a low defense modifier. So when we hit her, it hurts. She also has no reversals without meter. Her dead angle is easily low profiled. Her only true reversal is Coffin Super, and that is suspect at best as a reversal. So once we get her knocked down, we can actually party pretty hard. She has to hold Butterfly. She has a big hitbox. So Force Break Butterfly setups are very viable on this character for unblockables. And yeah, once we start hitting her, she can have a lot of problems. We can lock Disney down quite well, but once she has room to work, she can use her air mobility and her summons and pollute the screen. Can be frustrating, can be difficult to deal with. But yeah, all in all, it's one of those that momentum plays very heavily. If she gets us knocked down and locks us in the corner and keeps tick throwing us, we may never get to play the game again. But if we hit her, we get to score big damage, and we definitely outpace her on damage overall for resource use in this matchup. So in my opinion, pretty much even, but again, probably one of the matchups I am the least confident in my placement on. Allow me a quick drink here. Since, like always, all I'm doing is talking forever in these videos that are going to be way too long, but you know what you're getting into with me by now. Next, Millia. So this kind of how Jam was Soul Light. Millia is Chipp Light in that same way. Very strong lows, crouching kick, crouching slash, her sweep, phenomenal button. Very, very good. The big difference between her and Chipp is that Millia is much easier to chase down than Chipp is. She doesn't have teleports. She doesn't have things like Air Alpha Blade or Teleport FRC, all those stuff that increase her mobility. She's still very fast and a highly mobile character, but Anji's super jump can actually go up and chase her in the air, and our overall pokes and movement are better equipped to try and chase down Millia than they are to chase down a character like Chipp. She still has amazing space control with her pokes. Hairpin is still the best projectile in the game. If you can avoid being hit by Hairpin and she uses it, we can actually go guard it for a long period of time. Millia can't just bulldog us off the Hairpin very easily, and without it, her air options become much less interesting. We can poke her, we can chase her, we can use auto guard, big window auto guards like Standing Dust if she tries to come in from the air at us with an air poke. So a lot easier, honestly, to combat in neutral than Chipp is. You don't feel like you're just constantly running around with your head cut off trying to catch anything that might resemble a hit. But it's still Millia. If she knocks you down, you might die. This character still has incredibly oppressive mix-up. She's incredibly safe with her offense when it's run properly. Much like Dizzy, if they don't want to commit to meeting us with a low while the disc is on us, we can auto-guard our way out of stuff that a lot of characters can't reversal their way out of because of Force Break Co. Don't get me wrong, spending 25% just to get out of something is not a great feeling, but it's a price well spent to get out of some of the most oppressive mix-up in the game when we're forced into that situation. So we have that going for us. Now, again, even with that caveat there, a good Millia might knock you down once and you might just die that round. That could be a game right there. Millia is the Oki queen for a reason. She's really good. The other thing we do have going for us, another paper mache defense character. We hit her, it hurts real bad. We get lightweight Fujin carry combos on her. And defensively, kind of the same thing as Dizzy. She has no reversal without meter. She does have a very good backdash. If we're not airtight with our butterfly stuff, she can get out of a lot of that if we're not paying attention. But she normally has to hold Oki, just like we do when we get knocked down. So damage-wise, we absolutely outpace this character, even though she gets some of her juiciest combos on Anji in the corner. But from the average confirmed hit, we're going to get more off our resources than she gets off hers, and that alone keeps us in the fight. So just one of those, another heavily momentum-based matchup where either character can gain control and they may never give it back. So, like I said with some of these other ones, pretty much a definition of a even matchup. The one thing I will say that's incredibly important in this match is learn how to burst against Millia. Millia is a very, very good character at having auto burst baits built into her combos and her general confirm set. So learn where your safe burst points are, because if your burst gets bait against this character, you're probably done. Like, that's probably just game right there. That is not something you can afford to have happen, because sometimes you need that get out of jail card when you get knocked down and get prepared to put in the disc blender. So something to keep in mind. Next, another one I think is probably going to surprise a lot of people. Kai. So I'll be straight up. This could be one of our worst matchups in the game, if not for one thing. Kai has all the tools we hate. Absolutely incredible lows, including a jump cancelable sweep that's active for a bajillion years. Amazing anti-air, amazing answers to Fujin, fantastic space control. Does a lot of things that we don't find fun. His pressure, if done lazily and not with proper resources, is really easy to blow through with Fujin, really easy to auto-guard. But the big thing that makes this an even matchup and not a terrible matchup is one thing and one thing only. Kai doesn't do damage. Kai's biggest problem in plus R is he doesn't do plus R damage. This is a character that consistently has to 5-touch you to kill you, especially a character like Anji, who has the highest guts in the game. So Kai has to work way harder to get rid of our life bar than we have to work to get rid of his. His reversals aren't amazing. Vapor Thrust is okay, but it's certainly nothing to write home about in terms of the DPs. So once we knock him down, he usually has to hold Butterfly Oki. As long as you're properly accounting for Stun Dipper, it's not going to destroy your pressure in this game. Obviously, if you try and reset into Butterfly, yeah, you're probably going to get swatted for that. But that means you just have to be smart about your pressure and your resets. If you're accounting for Stun Dipper, you can blow it up quite well in this game. But in terms of controlling the overall space and neutral and all that, Kai kind of skunks us kind of bad. As long as they're not being lazy about using stuff like Stun Edge for the end of their pressure strings, and they're using Force Break Stun Edge, which will absolutely obliterate any interrupt attempt. Smart use of Force Break Star will give us a lot of fits. This character can honestly shut down Anji in a lot of ways, but again, we still hurt him and we still get to run our Oki on him. He has to hit us a lot to kill us, and I mean a lot. If he did real damage, he would probably be vying down there with Sol and Mei for some of our absolute most brutal matchups in the entire game. Pardon me. Because, again, just like a jump cancelable sweep like Kai has is a hell of a tool. It causes all sorts of problems. So he does have to be more creative with his pressure. He can't just in and stun edge. We can even auto guard through things like charge stun edge. So, he has to earn his pressure a little bit. But the big difference is we get to gamble in this fight, and Kai really doesn't. Kai has to play it straight up, which is how Kai wants to play. That's not a big deviation for him. It's just that risk reward at the end of the day, goes way into our favor in terms of the damage cash out for what we get. So that alone keeps it an even matchup and not a garbage one. Next up, Slayer. Get over there. There we go. So, this is another slugfest. Both characters can kind of bulldog one another. Both characters cash out very good damage. Both characters have tools that give the other character problems. Slayer has some really annoying tools for us. Crouching heavy, super annoying. His sweep, spaced properly, really annoying. Crouching kick, very good low. And obviously he has very tricky movement with Dandy Step. That's something that we have to account for. And it's Slayer. The hit you, it's like a dump truck. That hurts. I don't care. It may not be vanilla accent chord damage, but it's still damage, and it hurts. So we have to, accept that when we get counter hit, we're probably not going to have a good time. That said, we have some very, very potent tools in this matchup. 5P, elite in this matchup, really stifles Slayer's movement because his dash does not lower his hitbox at all. So he doesn't get to just sway under 5P. And 5P, when it's a tried and true tool you can use in neutral, that's good for Anji. That's an A+ for us. We do real well with that. So we have 5P going for us. Our general pokes are also quite good. Forward S can swat dandy stuff. Down forward kick is very good for scoring counter hits. We have all the tools to kind of cover horizontal space. Even Butterfly, if Slayer doesn't have EX Dandy on tap to try and blow through it, or we don't space it badly to where it can get forward punched, it can be really frustrating for Slayer to deal with because his air dash isn't very fast, and our 5P is also very good at the angle that Slayer comes in if he tries to IAD at you. So we have the right buttons to kind of slow him down. We also get good combos on Slayer. Big hitbox, really easy to carry across the screen, really easy to put in the corner. Oki is kind of a mixed bag against this character. Force Break Dandy forces us to really account for it when he has it on deck. We have to either be willing to bait it or do things like Needy Sweep to stuff him out of the startup of it. So we don't just get to run our basic Oki game against Slayer, so that can be a little frustrating. But we can still maintain momentum quite well against this character once we get going. And all in all, these characters just kind of slug each other quite well. They get to do what they want to do for the most part. The biggest concessions they both have to make overall is in their Oki game. Slayer kind of has to commit to meeting us with crouching kick or a low, because if he doesn't, we can auto guard him for free. If he tries to do forward kick or it's late out of Dandy or anything like that, we can just wake up forward kick and make him feel bad for it. We'll get a combo off, and yeah, he has a sad. So Oki is a little bit muted for both characters, but in general, they can both poke each other, they both convert for big damage, and they both get to run their general game plan mostly to effect. So, end of the day, yeah, basically an even matchup. Slayer probably outpaces us slightly in damage, but in general, I think Anji has an easier time connecting a hit than Slayer does by a little bit. So, yeah, another even matchup. Next, Kliff. So, this, I feel, is even, and as you can see, bordering on towards that advantage, but this might be the most volatile matchup on the whole matchup chart. Kliff, by nature, is a character designed to rob you. That is the character's play style. He gets a stun and instant kills you. He gets a counter hit and just does a bajillion damage and puts you in a very difficult to block situation. He has the kind of stuff that Anji doesn't like. His sweep, his crouching dust. Oh, buddy, what a hit! That thing is oppressive, absolutely oppressive button. And yeah, it's real good against Anji because what if Chipp's sweep was somehow better? That's basically what Kliff has going for him. Gives us fits, top to bottom, really oppressive low poke. We can't just Fuge on our way through a lot of our problems. Kliff has big active hitboxes, big pokes, a lot of ways to stuff us for attempting to Fuge and through his stuff. But just in the same way that Kliff can easily rob us, Kliff gets robbed in return. And that's not a thing unique to Anji, but we can do it quite effectively just like everybody else. Kliff has a very low stun modifier. He doesn't have good defense. Random counter hits can just end rounds against this character. You can just kill him outright. Our offense isn't fantastic in this matchup, I'm not going to lie. Kliff's air buttons aren't easy to contest. He does have quite good ground game to deal with us. And even if we get a knockdown, Oki's not amazing in this matchup, because if the Kliff player wants to gamble on stuff like doing his dodge into chop or force break chop, that's something we have to respect. Occasionally, he might roll bad and have the animation where his back goes out on him and we get to kill him for it. So another way that we can potentially rob him, or he might rob us. That's just the nature of playing against this character. This is just, it's volatile. This is another matchup I still would like to get more experience in, and one that I'm not super confident on my placement in this, but just for the very nature of it and how easy it is for one of these characters to detonate the other, and no life lead is safe in this matchup, not at all. So just a very volatile matchup, and that's why for my salt I leave it at even. That sweep, that alone is the thing that makes it where I would not keep this as advantage. If Kliff's sweep was bad, I think this is probably pretty handily tilted in Anji's favor. That button alone is a shutdown button, and it's a good one. So we're going to leave it at this part for now. All right, into the matchups. I do believe Anji out and out wins in this game. Starting with Venom. Venom is notably toned down from his accent core version. Definitely one of the characters that probably got some of the biggest tone downs overall from version to version. A lot of the assassin characters did, actually. So, Eddie, Slayer is definitely toned down. Millia is debatable. But all the assassin characters definitely got touched in this game. But we have a lot of tools to combat Venom's play style, whether it's him trying to zone at range or whether he wants to rush us down. He's a very malleable character, but honestly, so is Anji. Anji can transition quite well into, neutral to offense in this game. So we do things that work quite well against Venom. Super jump has to be accounted for. We can super jump over lazy pool ball zoning. He has to account for that. It's such a high arc, he can't just forward punch it with impunity, so we have that going for us. Any lazy pressure Venom does into Stinger Aim that isn't FRC'd or Carcass Ride is a super easy pressure string to either interrupt with Auto Guard or Fujin our way through. So he has to be on point. He can't just autopilot any of his pressure. What Venom does have, he has some very good safe jumps, very reversal punishing safe jumps. This is another one of those situations where Force Break Ko can bail us out of those. Setups that would beat any other Auto Guard, Force Break Ko might actually hit. So that's something that's really nice for us. And in general, we're just kind of good at disrupting Venom's general game plan. 6S has Auto Guard on it, so it can get us through some pokes of his or a pool ball now and again. Down forward kick, reaches, catches them if he's trying to set pool balls, stuff like that. And Fujin, again, has to be accounted for. It's not an end-all be-all in this matchup by any stretch of the imagination, but Venom has to really kind of pay attention and account for Anji's big weapons, whereas Anji can kind of easily disrespect a lot of Venom's big weapons. Now, when played well, Venom can still lock you down, be very oppressive, be very difficult to get out against, but the big thing is that Venom is a terrible defensive character. His only good defensive option is dead angle. His dead angle is very slow, so it's not that hard to bait if you know what you're doing. And Anji's risk-reward just plays quite well in this matchup. Anji can kind of play with, that jackass mentality and succeed quite well, whereas Venom is going to have to play very well and very smart to exceed in this matchup. Again, not a mollywhopping by any stretch. I don't think Anji just deletes Venom from the character screen by any stretch at all. But this is one of those matchups where Venom is going to have to feel like he has to work quite a bit, and Anji can kind of do what Anji does best and feel pretty good about it, all in all. Next, Johnny. So this is one of the more interesting matchups, in my opinion. It's one I'm extremely well-versed with. I play a lot of high-end Johnnies. I've gotten a ton of experience in this matchup. I would argue this might be my single most experienced high-level matchup outside of, like, Faust and Zappa. I play a lot of good Johnnies. And this is another one that this is a big slugfest. We have really good tools for this. Fujin is a thorn in Johnny's side unless he commits to stopping it literally all the time. Butterfly is very good against zoning against him. Instant air dash jump punch, quite good. Forward slash, down forward kick, both very good buttons against Johnny. We can just kind of poke at him, and he can poke back, but in general, Johnny has to heavily adjust his approach and his pressure against Anji. If he ever doesn't miscancel a string into some type of low or heavily active move to try and blow up an attempt to Fujin through the end of his pressure, you will Fujin through the end of his pressure and hit him, and Johnny is super easy to carry and get knockdowns against anywhere on screen at all times. He has to account for it. Really good Johnnies will never, ever end a string in a lazy coin or ever end a string in anything but trying to put a big hitbox out that will crush Fujin if you try to do it. If they ever stop doing that, it's a free lunch. So Fujin, even if you decide to not use it, if you decide to play really solid and safe, Johnny having to constantly account for it is a problem for him, and it definitely mutes his pressure a little bit. In addition to that, we get to bully Johnny on Oki in a lot of ways. Butterfly is very good. He has a huge hitbox, so force break butterfly setups are very valid against Johnny. You can get good unblockables into full damage into the corner. And even if we don't have a good chance to set up butterfly Oki, because Johnny does have a very good backdash, down forward kick bullies his character on wake up. Down forward kick is unthrowable. It has low auto guard. And it automatically low profiles wake up super from Johnny. So his only reasonable reversal gets counter hit if he ever tries it. And the thing is you can't just do down forward kick always, because once someone knows it's coming, your options after it's blocked are kind of limited because you have to special cancel it. But if you mix up down forward kick with stuff like TK Orb or Stomp or other things just to keep them guessing, it makes it so anytime Johnny wakes up, he has to accept that he is at risk of being bullied, and that's really big for us. The only reason I think that Anji doesn't out and out just trash Johnny is because it's Johnny. He hurts. One counter hit will hurt real bad, and if he locks you down and knows how to set up good unblockable setups, that can be very problematic for Anji. We can get out of them better than most because we might be able to force break auto guard through it, stuff like that. But in general, this is one of those matchups that Anji gets to feel way more in control than Johnny does. Anji gets to feels like he gets to use his good buttons, his good tools, and play his game throughout the majority of the match and feel quite good about it. Johnny has to make a lot of alterations to his base game. He has to account for Fujin. He has to account for auto guard. And he can't just run roughshod over Anji when it comes to pressure. So it's not a huge win for Anji, but Anji is going to feel like he has a way easier time executing his game plan than Johnny does. And that alone is what allows him to, I think, consistently be slightly ahead, even though damage-wise, Johnny definitely outpaces us. But if you get a knockdown into a force break butterfly, that's effectively what Johnny gets off of a counter hit combo. We're just doing it in 2 hits instead of 1, so there's more opportunities for an escape, right? So, yeah, all in all, a matchup I'm super familiar with, one that I think played intelligently, Anji makes Johnny take a lot of concessions he doesn't want to take, and all in all is a pretty good matchup for us. But that damage keeps Johnny in the fight. Next, Robo-Ky. So Robo, kind of similar to regular Kai. He does a lot of things Anji doesn't like. Very good lows. Completely destroys the consistency of butterfly setup with delayed wake up. We have to commit to OTGing him, and good players when they're OTG just tech. So, not going to get a lot of good butterfly action in this matchup, unfortunately. He also has a godlike DP at level 2. The best DP in the game, honestly, outside of, unless you want to call, like, Rao from Zappa. So, he's very annoying. He does a lot of things we don't like to deal with. Our combo routes are not especially great against him because of his funky hitbox. He also has incredibly high defense, so it takes a while to whittle him down. The thing that I think makes this in Anji's favor, although a very small margin of favor, is that we have a lot of options that make it more annoying for Robo to kind of run his game on us and chase us down. Super Jump's annoying for Robo to deal with. He doesn't have great ways of just swatting us out of the air with ease. And in general, Anji plays this game more unfairly than Robo does. Robo's big problem is that he's too fair for +R. He has some stuff, don't get me wrong. He's still a very scary character, and play to effect, he can do bad things. But he relies a lot more on lack of knowledge checks and some gimmicky stuff to get his wins, as opposed to playing just a oppressive overall overbearing game, right? You have to learn how to deal with his crouching kick, the slide, because that'll just wreck your day if you're not accounting for it. But something like our crouching slash will blow it up really well at range. It doesn't have a great, Robo's crouching kick doesn't have a great hitbox, so it's manageable. And so we have lots of tools. We have lots of ways to combat Robo. It's just kind of annoying to do it. Overall, like, damage-wise is kind of a wash. We don't do as much damage in this as we would like because of Robo's high defense and his funky hitbox, but we can also make Robo block for a long time, crank some guard gauge, and then score a big hit for our cash out, so that's pretty nice. But Robo still does a chunk of damage. His character is always hit hard, and that hasn't changed. Robo will still blow your life bar up if he gets his good hits. It's just that basically this matchup is much less about how the characters' kits interact overall, and more the fact that Robo just doesn't have as many oppressive things as Anji does to work with. They both have to kind of make some concessions in the matchup, but at the end of the day, Anji is just a more well-rounded character than Robo is, and that basically is what carries him in this matchup, in my opinion. And with that, we're out of minor advantage. These are the best of the best. These are the matchups I feel Anji can consistently win no matter what at the highest level. So first, Justice. Justice is the most polarizing character in the game. Justice is very much I destroy this matchup or I get destroyed in this matchup. And Anji is kind of in the middle, but Anji is very, very, very good at fighting this character. First things first, Justice can't duck under crouching punch. That is a real problem for characters who can't do it. Because that means we have an incredibly oppressive poke in neutral, and anytime we make Justice block that, that's not fun. That's just +3 off a jab, and boy, do we have a lot of options off jab, so that's real good for us. We get incredible setups against Justice because of her fat hitbox, so unblockable force break butterfly setup, super easy to set up against this character. She doesn't have great options for combating pressure. Once she's cornered, she has to take big risks with her catch counter or her less than amazing DP. So once Anji gains control, he gets to hold control. But you're probably going, Clage, isn't the whole thing of Justice that you can never get to her because her zoning is amazing? And that is, in fact, why Anji is good in this matchup. Anji's very good at dealing with nukes and dealing with the general zoning game plan. He has a lot of answers, and a lot of characters don't. So our super jump forces Justice to do a nuke order that she doesn't want to do even after a knockdown. If she doesn't fire the high nuke quickly, we just super jump over all of it. And she's just like, well, there went all my pressure. So that forces her to do a less than ideal nuke setup, because if you only have one of the horizontal nukes coming at you, that's a lot easier to work with in terms of options we have against it. We also have Force Break Butterfly, which is basically infinite projectile duration. It will go through however many nukes she can try and put in front of it and force her to do something. If she has to block that, then her pressure ends. Even if all that happens is she ends up blocking it and stands there, cool. We gave ourselves enough room to go up and actually get out of the full screen pressure situation. So that's kind of nice. We can auto guard through horizontal nukes when done very well. It's kind of a risk, but you can do it if you read the situation properly, because So is a very good auto guard. And the other big one is once we have 50%, Justice can never throw low horizontal nuke again. And you're probably like, what do you do at 50%? Well, the answer is a little unorthodox, but it's really funny. If you run up and you see Justice do low horizontal nuke, if you dash up and just do Ise-Ogi while she's recovering out of it, one, it's guaranteed to hit her because she has recovery. Two, if you space it right, the horizontal nuke is going to knock you out of the animation of Ise-Ogi, and you're going to get to follow it up with a combo because you'll get back up before it ends. So it's a really cool way to cash out some damage and get a hard knockdown against Justice for trying to play her base game. Just in general, Anji has every tool you could ask for to deal with Justice. Now, that said, impatience will still get you slaughtered here. You cannot be impatient against the nukes. You have to understand the concept of the screen control and how Justice works. You have to pick your spots carefully. But if you play this matchup smart, we have the tools to give Justice fits. once we gain control, we can make it so Justice doesn't get to breathe again if we're playing well. So we do very well in this matchup. It's not the polarizing matchups that she has with other characters. We have characters that just laugh at her and just go, why are you a character in this game? You shouldn't exist. But we are one of the characters that beats her, but doesn't totally curb stomp her, which is a rare place to be in this game. Justice's matchups are very have and have not. There's very few middle ground matchups for her. So it's kind of a weird, unique luxury we have, but I think Anji handles this character exceedingly well. Next, Ino. So if you want the ultra long version of this matchup, I actually did the write-up for the Dustloop wiki in Ino's page, breaking down the Ino versus Anji matchup. I'll do the quick TLDR version here for this video because it's already running long. But in general, the reason this is a good matchup for Anji is that Anji is quite good at disrespecting a lot of the things that Ino wants to do, whereas Ino is not very good at disrespecting a lot of Anji's base tools. Her hover dash makes her susceptible to Fujin things if not done well. Now, granted, good Inos know how to space this right and can deal with it. She does have some good tools for stopping Fujin, like Stroke the Big Tree, and her low-profile stuff can give problems. Her far S is a very disjointed hitbox, and she has some things going for her, but the big problem is that Ino can't do some of her tried and true stuff in this matchup. Note Oki is almost off the table if Anji has 25%, even if it's Force Break Note, because we can literally wake up Auto Guard into Force Break Ko and get away. If Ino's anywhere in the vicinity, she gets hit and she's losing all of her momentum. That's a super unique position to be. There is still Oki Ino can run on us to try and blow up us attempting to Auto Guard, but they have to commit to just dropping the note and doing things that Ino players honestly don't want to do. And that feels real bad for her. She's also lightweight and has a wide hitbox, so we get our juicy confirms for long range on her. Her defense without meter is very poor, so we can do unblockable setups on her. And in general, we can just kind of be a jackass in this matchup a lot of the time. We can go up and chase her with super jump kick, super jump dust. We have a lot of tools. Forward punch is very good against her hover dash. Ino still has stuff. She can still mix us up. She still does really good damage. Vertical Chemical Love is still a thing that can really catch you off guard and do some bad things. But this is one of those matchups that I think even at lower levels, you're going to feel pretty good playing this as Anji. Your base kit just plays better than Ino's base kit. So that goes a long ways to just making this kind of an easy matchup to see. So if you want the more detailed breakdown, feel free to check out the Dustloop wiki and read that write-up I did, I think late in 2020, something like that. And it still applies quite well. I feel pretty much the same about this matchup as I did then. So, but yeah, pretty solid matchup for Anji overall. Ino's still got crazy Oki and still has really, really potent mix-up because of her hover dash. So she can still get on a roll and take games off you, but in general, Anji's going to have a good time doing what he likes to do. Next. Zato, Eddie in Accent Core, but I think it's easier just call him Zato these days, as that's what most people know him by. So, Zato is, like Venom, very, very toned down compared to his Accent Core self. Accent Core, he's probably the best character in the game, and this he very is not. So, what really the long and short of this matchup is that Anji's pokes are very good against Zato. Down forward kick, crouching slash, forward slash, all very good pokes. And the big thing is we're very good at blowing up bad Eddie summons. If you summon Eddie poorly, we can blow it up with a myriad of pokes. We can do empty slash Fujin into fan needles, which will kill Eddie. He doesn't get to just bring him out willy-nilly against us. We have a lot of tools to deal with. Zato has good lows, so we can't just, bullhead our way in with Fujin and have everything work like that. But what we can do is, once we get him knocked down or get control of the match once, Zato's defense is awful. God-awful defense. Even his reversal super is not very good. So once we get on top of him, he's holding Butterfly. He gotta deal with it. Another character with a very wide hitbox, so Force Break Butterfly setups are very viable on this character at mid-screen into big damage. in general, we just get to cash out very well. Zato can't fly around like an idiot, and because we have things like super jump kick, super jump dust that go up and chase him and challenge his air mobility. You know, Zato's never out of a fight because it's Zato. He's a puppet character in an Arc Sys game. Like, if he knocks you down, he might put you through the blender and might find his way to a win. But in general, Anji is just a much more solid character, cashes out damage more consistently than Zato does. And a character with no defense is all Anji can ask for. If you don't have a reversal, Anji's not a fun character to fight. His Oki isn't Millia or Dizzy or any of the elite Oki characters, but it's Oki that can be done for mix-up, or it can just be done to hold pressure for a long period of time and crank a guard bar. And Zato has no guts, so if you crank a guard bar and open him up once and he doesn't have burst or something to bail out, you're just going to kill him. You just do a bajillion D damage, he dies. So all in all, Anji handles Zato quite well. Again, you have to pick your spots. You can't just, bulldog your way in, because you'll end up getting hit by Nobiru or getting put into the Eddie blender, and that's, it's still hard to block. He still has good mix-up. He's still real scary. He has command grab. He does things we don't like, but if we're doing things right, we don't need to let Zato play the game very often, and that's a good place to be. Getting down to the finals here. Next, Bridget. I do think there is one matchup in, process of elimination, you can figure it out, that is better overall than Bridget on paper. I think this is probably the easiest matchup Anji has in terms of just playing it practicality-wise. Bridget's really easy for Anji to bully. Fujin goes through a ton of things. Bridget has good lows, but they're kind of committal. They have a lot of recovery on them. Some of them are really dangerous to throw out outside of combos, like Kickstart My Heart. The roller skate forward move is a low, but if she uses that outside of combos, they use that outside of combos, pardon me, then that's bad news. They're gonna die. Fujin just goes through all sorts of cute in the air yo-yo setups, and Bridget is another lightweight, easy to corner carry, easy to cash out big damage. They have poor defense modifiers overall, so you get to chunk the damage off real good. In addition, Bridget is very good at stalling out games with a life lead, going up in the air and just killing time and not doing stuff. Anji has very good ways to challenge that. This is the one matchup, if you're a fan of Force Break Own, this is probably the best matchup you're ever going to have it. You see Bridget just, doing the thing where they're canceling yo-yo roll over and over again up in the air and trying to never be on the ground. Go up and heavenly Anji buster them and make them feel bad. It's a real threat in this matchup. And, of course, Super Jump, still super viable. Super Jump Dust, Super Jump Kick can challenge Bridget up in the air. But, end of the day, Bridget has kind of the same problem Kai does. They don't do damage. They just don't do enough damage in a game where everyone does pretty solid damage except for a couple characters. And so, Anji's Brisk Reward is just way better than Bridget's overall. A Fujin is big damage into a knockdown. Our pokes are quite good against the stuff Bridget wants to do. Anji also just doesn't have to overextend in this matchup. You can play it tip far slash range, tip down forward kick range, and not ever put yourself in a situation where you're between Bridget and the yo-yo, so you can't end up in the juicy Roger setups, right? So this is a matchup that, all in all, Anji can really bully this character, and you don't see elite Bridgets very often because this character, again, is a little too fair in a game that is loaded with unfair nonsense, and that's a struggle to get over. So overall, Anji fights Bridget very, very well. You have the tools to excel. Auto guard gets you out of a lot of stuff. If you get put in the corner and get put in the yo-yo pressure and the yo-yo mix, it can be rough. Bridget has a very good standing overhead that combos into a knockdown, can be looped back into itself. They have a good throw game, good air throw game. They have things. They're not useless by any stretch of the imagination. But for practicality's sake, I think this is the matchup that most Anji players will play and go, oh, this feels pretty good. I feel like we handled this quite well. And mostly he does. It just has the right tools to deal with the things that Bridget wants to do to try to win games. And we hold our own very well in this matchup. Pretty cut and dry, in my opinion. Final, what I feel is Anji's best matchup, but with a lot of caveats, Potemkin. Potemkin is the ideal character for Anji to fight for a few reasons. Same as Justice, Potemkin cannot duck under stand punch. That's huge. That is a very fast +3 normal on block that can be gatlinged into a myriad of lows that will blow up things like hammerfall interrupts and all that kind of nonsense. So even though I do think this is Anji's best matchup, I do think you will find this a lot more difficult in a lot of situations, and I'll kind of explain why here. Again, the things in our favor: can't duck under 5p. We get very juicy combos on Potemkin because of his hitbox size. Even better, we get the easiest unblockable force break butterfly setups in the game. Even in the corner, you can do unblockable force break butterfly setups on Potemkin if you know how to space it out properly when you end your combos. So we can lock this character down for an incredibly long time and do so with very minimal risk if we're smart. But that said, this can feel a lot worse than the other advantageous matchups because it's Potemkin, and this character gets one opening and they can RPS you to death on the spot. Potemkin gets a full confirm off Potemkin Buster on Anji because of Anji's giant hitbox when he's falling. And that really hurts. That is a big knock against us in this matchup. But we also get to RPS back a little bit. We can attempt to auto-guard things on Wake Up. We have some options that other characters don't have to try and combat. We have an unthrowable normal down forward kick that we can use if we suspect there's a Potemkin Buster tick set up. Something we can also do is a meaty against him when we don't have an option for a good butterfly setup, which is quite nice. So that all kind of goes in Anji's favor. And like I said, being able to easily confirm, go to the corner, do unblockables, basically allows us to loop Potemkin to death if we're smart. And that's a big win. But Potemkin still has amazing pokes. It's really easy for him to blow through something with a Hammerfall or an FRC, sneak in a Potemkin Buster. All it takes is one minor mistake, and you can get RPS'd up and down and die. This character, Potemkin, is very good at running it back. He's got the best defense in the game. He has huge effective health. The only reason he doesn't feel as bad to try and whittle down is because, again, he's another character we can crank his guard gauge for a long time, and if we open him up, we get to do big boy damage to him with Fujin loops and super jump combo loops, all kinds of stuff that cashes out some pretty chunky damage despite his high defense. But he really is he's the prototype character for Anji to fight. Everything we want to do works really well here. Fujin isn't elite in this matchup, but it's good enough. And you combine that with our stand punch being incredibly oppressive. It's kind of the opposite of the Mei matchup. Mei stand heavy is a stop button for us in that matchup, right? Well, stand punch is similar for Potemkin. We're also really good at auto-guarding any of the stuff he wants to do from the air, like delayed falling dust. Any of that kind of shenanigans, we can blow it up really easily for hard knockdowns and lots of meter. So, all in all, this matchup played smartly. Anji is definitely in control. He has the right tools to really fluster Potemkin and give him a rough time. But one mistake and it could go sideways real fast. If you get mixed on the overhead or the low and don't auto guard right or backdash out, or you just sit there and get Potemkin bustered again for the big damage, it can go real bad. I have played a lot against Raekwon. I've played a lot against Fu. And when it goes good, it feels great. And when it doesn't go good, I feel like I can't win. But end of the day, played correctly, played to the highest of the ability, I think this is a advantageous matchup for Anji. But I think it speaks to the character's overall status in this game. He doesn't dumpster anyone, nor does he get dumpstered by anyone. The only one I'm even verging on that is Mei, and that's with the big caveat of playing her at the highest level and playing her in a much more patient, well thought out manner than, frankly, a lot of people like to play that character, because Mei's like to party. She has big buttons, and that's what makes her fun. So, yeah, that's all of them. And of course, if you've been watching this video for the near hour and 40 minutes I've been yammering, you see my little quip here. The mirror. The good old mirror. There's different kinds of mirror matches, right? There is, mirrors where characters don't handle their own kit very well, so they just kind of have to hold each other's offense and stuff, and it feels really weird. There's mirrors where both characters are very defensive bent or zoning bent, so they're really boring because it's both characters just trying to vie for control and nothing else. And then they're Clown Fiesta mirrors, and guess which one this is? This is Clown Fiesta Extraordinaire. Anji is exceedingly good at fighting his own kit, including beating Fujin and beating his own butterfly setups really, really hard. I could spend an entire video talking about the nonsense that is the Anji mirror, but if you want the TLDR, make sure you don't swing first. If the other Anji Fujin's first and you do it second, you win. If they try to poke and you forward punch after they poke, you win. This is a weird matchup. It's a weird mirror, and it often turns into an absolute shit show because that's just the nature of a character with a kit like Anji's. He has so many options, and they're all good against his own options, ironically enough. So it's quite the thing to take part in. But that there, friends, is my personal take on the Anji Mito plus R matchup chart. Again, reminder, this is not meant to be chiseled into stone. This is not gospel. This is just a lot of hours of playing in my own time, a lot of footage of watching really good players in Anji's matchups, a lot of discussion with people's opinions and input on this game that I trust implicitly. And so I think this is a very good baseline of what you can expect in the various matchups in this game. Obviously, everyone is different. Maybe you know, you're an Anji play out there and you fight an A.B.A. and you feel like that matchup is just straightforward as hell and you can handle it. Or maybe you really, really struggle against Venom's pressure, stuff like that. Like I said, I tried to eliminate as much of my personal bias as I could and make this a very, you know, brass tacks kind of analysis on the matchups. And yeah, I welcome your input. I'd love to know what y'all think. If you're an Anji main, or if you're a main of any of these other characters, and you want to give me your side of the matchup and how you think it goes. I'd be real curious if anyone takes umbrage with any of these. You know, I think anything where you're like, oh, I would move X character up or down one tier. I think that's splitting hairs. Honestly, just because, you know, these are all very close to begin with. You know, the difference between even and minor advantage is one game over the course of 20. That's not a big margin, if you catch my drift. But I'm sure there are people who might have some very solid arguments for moving characters multiple tiers up or down, and I would be very curious to hear those. So, as always, I hope you enjoyed. Hopefully, this was worth the wait. I took a lot of time and effort to get this one. And up next, I'm going to share my Guilty Gear Accent Core plus R tier list, give you my thoughts on the overall character strength and where they fall. That one, again, was a lot of effort, a lot of revisions, so look forward to that. And for now, that's all I have. I'll be playing more plus R online. If you're on and see me, feel free to queue up for some games. And yeah, hopefully... I'm not going to promise regular videos because I just don't know when I'm going to be in the mood to do these things. And I'm trying to keep Twitch afloat because, boy, has that been a fun website for the last 6 months. But that's neither here nor there. So I'll try and keep the content rolling, get some more match footage up and all that good stuff, and make this channel worth looking at again. Strive Season 2 is announced, so maybe we'll get some information on that in the future. If Anji gets pulled out of the dumpster, I'll probably try and do some content for that and see if they make him viable. But they haven't given me reason to have high hopes. I'm not going to start now. So yeah, for now it's still going to mostly be plus R and probably some DFO once that comes out. So look forward to all that. But as always, I appreciate y'all. Thanks for hanging out. You know, if you do like something, cool. Again, this is my hobby, not my job. So I don't need to beg or fish for any of that, but if you want to, I appreciate it. And hopefully this was enjoyable and knowledgeable. And if you sat through an hour and 45 minutes of me talking about Anji's matchups, well, thanks. I can't believe anyone would do that. So, as always, y'all take care of yourself, be safe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.